Welcome back. Now, according to Peach Payments' Black Friday dashboard, by 9 this morning, 140,000 transactions related to Black Friday purchases had already taken place. This as consumers seek deals on various items during the traditional shopping spree period ahead of the festive season. The season may be merry, but the economic climate not so much. Tumelo Ramugond, head of credit card at Standard Bank, joins us for some insights into the South African consumer during this period. Thank you so much for your time, Tumelo. I'm not sure if that 140,000 transactions that have already taken place carry a lot of weight, because I've just come from the mall, and Sandton City being one of the more affluent malls, and actually the customer footfall was not any different from your normal payday. And I'm actually wondering if, and just even looking at the prices that the retailers are offering at this point really didn't seem like that much to me. And I'm just wondering if this is a sign of pressure from both the consumer and also the retailer point of view.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and good afternoon to everyone. I think there's a couple of items to note just based on what you said. So there's definitely consumer pressure, consumer cash strapped. We've seen a persistent period of high interest rate as well as, inflation, and we know that has actually impacted the customer's ability to spend. But that's also a reason, I think, why customers will potentially go out there and try and find good deals for themselves, even though potentially they then focus more on essential goods as opposed to sort of luxury items. So we do think that there is some value that customers are going to go out there looking for. But at the same time, it's important, I think, to just note that tomorrow, or in essence, we can say today is probably the big payday before the 25th. So there is still that potential that you might actually see a lot more food flow tomorrow, given that that's our biggest payday in the country. So I think the volumes that you mentioned that you're seeing in the malls could also be signifying the fact that customers potentially, or most of the customers potentially gets paid midnight tonight, tomorrow, and that might actually lead to a different outcome potentially from a purchasing perspective tomorrow.
Tumelo, you're head of credit card. Let's talk about debt and the demand for debt over this period. And maybe traditionally, if you've seen one trend that could be different now, considering that we are seeing 14-year highs in terms of interest rates.
Yeah. So I mean, the reality is, I mean, customers always do go out there looking for debt. Just given the current sort of economic environment, it's been very difficult for most customers to access that. I mean, if you were to look at most of the stats that are shared about this country, you would know that house are actually over-indebted. And as a result, it's becoming a lot more difficult to actually access credit for most consumers. There will always be some level of demand for debt for those consumers that are able to afford. That is not necessarily something that would be encouraging customers to say, go get, for example, a loan so that you can buy on Black Friday.
You talk about, obviously, the fact that it is very difficult to access credit at this point, and even the retailers have been coming out saying that they've also tightened their credit lending criteria. And of course, with high inflation, high interest rates, cash is very, very hard to come by. And I'm wondering if actually in this period, the buy now, pay later apps could have a big payday, as seeming that that could be one of the few options that are left for the consumer at this point.
No. So definitely. I mean, I think something like that could definitely, I guess, help, especially in terms of easing sort of customers the cash flow as you sort of pay later and over a couple of months. But again, I think the message from us is really to say, really don't go for credit to actually spend on a day like today. Rather actually spend from your savings on items that you deem as essential. Obviously, in instances where you have no option but to do that, then just be responsible and make sure that you actually don't over-indebt yourself and sort of put yourself in a tight situation.
Do you want to talk to us about the trends you're seeing here on online versus, brick and mortar here? Are people going into stores physically? Because as Natty says, she's at Sandton City this morning, the malls are empty, but people could just be behind their laptops. So are we seeing that, trend really playing itself out a little bit more?
Yeah, so one thing that we're definitely seeing is that the online spend so far for this Black Friday is slightly higher compared to, for example, what we saw last year. And as a percentage, I think, of total spend, we're definitely seeing that we're seeing faster growth on online spend than we are seeing on physical stores. So there's definitely a trend to say customers are probably getting a lot more comfortable with using online and therefore are sort of sitting at home and doing some of these purchases for Black Friday. So that's definitely a trend we're seeing. It's a trend that we think will potentially sort of continue for the rest of the weekend all the way until Cyber Monday. So I think we're definitely looking forward to seeing higher spend coming from online spend this Black Friday.
Tumelo, I'd also like to know, what do you mean by essential items that, consumers will end up going for essential items? Because, for example, Black Friday is usually seen as a period in which consumers actually go for big ticket items like household appliances and the sort. And I'm wondering how you think that consumers will be navigating that, or maybe we could see more subdued demand for those big ticket items this time around.
Yeah, so I think you're definitely right. I think the trick always becomes that for those type of items, one sort of needs to do quite a bit of research before Black Friday to really understand what the price of those items are, so that when the day comes and you're sort of going to purchase those items, you've got a good sense of whether you actually are getting a good deal or not. So that's always, I think, tricky. But when it comes to the actual essential items, I think in our sense, we're mostly talking about items like grocery, sort of supermarket spend, retail clothing, footwear. Those are sort of the items that we're looking at mostly as what we actually expect customers to be spending on. So the items that you sort of need for your day-to-day spend. We do know that at this time of the year, people also tend to do sort of Christmas shopping and all those other items. So we do think that is something that is part of that. We are, I must say, also seeing this Black Friday a bit of an uptick in spend for travel and accommodation, which is something that we didn't quite see last year, which is coming through this Black Friday. So those are sort of the items that we start seeing, I think, big spend on, and we do expect that customers will probably utilize the deals that comes from those categories.
Fantastic, Tumelo. Thank you for speaking to us today, shedding some light on this retail spectacle, I'll call it. That was Tumelo Ramugond, he's head of credit card at Standard Bank.